Hi everybody, I'm Rushabh. I started this company called Frappe Technologies 10 years ago in 2008. We have a product called ERPNext, which is a free and open source ERP product. I'll talk about it. And it's been open sourced since 2008. So we have a 10-year experience of being in open source communities and also being on the, everybody here is a consumer for sure, but we have an experience of seeing things from the creator side also. That's the kind of story I want to share with you today. So what is ERPNext? I mean, the way you put it right now is an open source alternative to SAP. And it has taken us 10 years to reach this space. So when I say it is an open source alternative to SAP, then it means that it has more than 80% of the features you would expect in a product like SAP, probably a lot more. We have financial accounting, we have CRM, we have HRMS, order processing, your sales order cycle, purchasing, inventory management, serialized, batched inventory, projects and timesheets, help desk, SLA tracking, all of that. We have a retail POS, manufacturing module, manufacturing bill of materials, planning. We have education module, so we have a full school management system, which is right from student tracking, attendance, admissions, assessments, everything. And then it also has an e-commerce front end, so all your transactions are also kept on an e-commerce portal. And then we also do the service industry stuff. It is 100% free and open source, so there is no catch here. There are a lot of products in this space which are so-called open source, means they have certain percentage as open and then certain percentage is closed. I'll briefly cover those things also later. And it's been recognized by Gartner. So if you go online and look for ERPNext, it has a lot of reviews there. In this particular quadrant, this is the front runners quadrant, ERPNext is rated very highly in terms of recommendations and usability. We are also an open source community. We have conferences every year. We just completed our 6th annual conference. We have had conferences in Germany and Indonesia. We have a user forum that has more than 12,000 active users, and it's quite popular. So who uses ERPNext? So I'm sure some of you would have heard of Zerodha, and a lot of you would not have heard also, because it's an amazing story. I just want to share a couple of minutes here. And it's India's largest stockbroking company. It's a bootstrap company based out of Bangalore. They bootstrapped their way to being the #1 stockbroking company. They beat ICI Securities recently, and they don't do advertising either. So Zerodha's entire platform, the entire broking platform, their CRM platform, and HRMS is based on ERPNext. Recently, Reliance Industries has started using ERPNext. So they have evaluated ERPNext extensively over the last few months, and it's being deployed in their latest joint ventures, whichever new joint ventures. And we are talking about Reliance, which has 900 SAP consultants in-house. So this is like a huge win for open source, that a company like Reliance is now looking to move away from proprietary software and look at open source. So this is just we have our conference last month, and so this is Kailash. He's the CTO of Zerodha. He's very kind enough to give a keynote at our conference last month and acknowledge that ERPNext has been one of the key factors in their being the #1 stockbroking company. And what I say these days is that there are only 2 kinds of companies in the world: those that use ERPNext and those that will use ERPNext. Because you saw all of this and it appears too good to be true, but it is. It has everything. You don't have to pay for SAP, you don't have to pay for licenses. You can go online tomorrow, fire up a droplet on DigitalOcean, and you're live with a full-blown ERP system. In fact, that's how a lot of our customers actually start using ERP. So along with ERPNext, we've also built a low-code framework, which is also getting quite popular. So it's a metadata-driven framework where you configure the metadata, and it has a form builder, report builder, roles and permissions are baked in, email and communications, files, attachments. So you don't have to, so any kind of business app usually needs these kind of features, which are also available in Frappe framework out of the box. Again, this is MIT licensed, 100% free and open source. These are just some screenshots I wanted to show you of how ERPNext looks. We have graphs and dashboard and list views. It's clean, modern UI. We also do a lot of other open source. So wherever we find there is a problem, gap existing in the industry, we have taken the opportunity to actually build products. So this is a small library that we've built called FrappéChart. So the specialty about this is an SVG library. It's again open source, but it has no dependencies. It's a very lightweight library that you can install without jQuery or any other dependencies. And this went really trending on Hacker News and on GitHub, and it has 13,000 stars, which I think is the highest in India. So and then we have also built a data table. So like modern browsers lack a good high quality data table. So this is another free component that is out there. And the Gantt, we also built a Gantt component. So these are all free tools that you can use in your application. And then we are the highest ranking company in India and Mumbai. So we use a lot of DigitalOcean. I think that's one of the reasons we've been given this opportunity. And from day one, I really love the simplicity of DigitalOcean because it's just been very clear. The pricing has been very clear from day one. And we started, yes, for the $5 plan, which was such a low-hanging fruit compared to anything that was available out there. Today, we have more than 70 droplets on DigitalOcean, and they are like all kinds of stuff. We have built our own SaaS platform. We also have a lot of customers who are single instance hosting. So we do a lot of single instance hosting customers on DigitalOcean. We use DigitalOcean for proxies. We run, so our forum is built on Discourse, which is another open source product, and that also runs on DigitalOcean. And we use monitoring tools are also built out of the box. So we prefer DigitalOcean over AWS or any other alternatives, primarily because of the UI UX experience. After all these years, I think we have been an early adopter of DigitalOcean. I really like the fact that it's easy to get started, and I mean, if you've used AWS, I'm sure you know what it means. And I think I also like the team management features that allows different people in the team to have different roles and access different kind of droplets. So coming to the second part of my talk, the business of open source. We all use open source, right? I mean, I don't think I need to introduce open source anymore. It's become, I mean, it's everywhere. The whole world runs on open source. But how do you make money out of open source? So many years ago, there used to be just one rule, and there are a lot of blog posts you can read about this, that there is only one rule to making money from open source, is that if you're Red Hat. Only Red Hat makes money. There have been a slew of companies that have come around that time. There was SUSE Linux, and there was like lots of other people who tried, but everybody failed. There was MySQL, there was a lot of other companies, but Red Hat was the only one who was making money because people still hadn't figured out how this model works. But fast forward to today, and you have a slew of companies that probably have a revenue of more than $100 million and have products that are 100% free and open source. So not 100% free and open source, but yeah, open source. So you have Elastic, everybody knows these products. We have GitLab, you have Redis, you have MongoDB, Metabase, which is a BI tool. You have Mattermost, which is a Slack alternative. And obviously you have Docker. And all of these, and open source is just blooming everywhere. I mean, in 2008 when we started, it seemed like the right way to build software. But in 2019, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you're writing software which you think is going to sustain over a period of time, it has to be open source because that's how people are going to adopt it. And people are going to expect things to be open source because more and more stuff out there is already open source. So how do we make money? That's the first question I get when I meet people. Okay, you're giving a product away for free, so how do you end up making money? So these are some of the standard ways people make money on open source. So you have support hosting. So large companies like Reliance will obviously want somebody to come, if their instance has a problem, to come and help fix their instance or at least give guarantees. Then obviously there's hosting, consulting, training, and then there is a whole new slew of services. I don't know if people are plugged into the whole debate of open core versus open source, but open source companies are fighting back because what has happened is we live in the cloud era, and in the cloud has driven open source to the next level, but a lot of the benefits are actually accrued with the distributors. So a lot of open source products are fighting back. MongoDB has a different license. MongoDB versus AWS fight, which you saw recently, they changed their license. Redis Labs changed their license. Elastic has license problems. So almost every company that realizes that who wants to make money from open source is finding that it's really hard to scale. because they don't own the distribution, basically. So what happens is that they start closing parts of the software. There is two ways people start closing it. The very interesting license that came out latest is a company called Segment, which just released their own license, which says that you can commercially host a 3-year-old version of their software. So that's what the license is. If you're using it for your own self, you can use it. But if you want to like commercially host it, you have to like either buy a license or host a 3-year-old version. And so people do add-ons, like the WordPress community. If you've ever done WordPress, WooCommerce, you have to buy those add-ons, and that's how actually the people make money. And open core is another very strong trend where a lot of parts of the product are not open source. So when you start using the software, you will actually feel the need for that product, those extensions, and then you'll buy a commercial license. Or the upgrades are not free. So you could install one version of the software, but if you want to upgrade it, you have another script which you have to pay. There are a lot of ways people make money which are both legit and in a way not legitimate, because when you say free and open source, people expect it to be like really free and open source. And then when they realize that there are other ways people are fighting, kind of feels a cheat. So there are a lot of conflicts which I think that are at the core of this whole business. So one is, the first conflict I want to highlight is the conflict between commerce and sharing. So when you share stuff, you can't make money from it. If you want to make money from something, it has to be scarce. And open source thrives because you can share the source code, you get contributors, you get people to talk about your product. And that conflicts with the fact that the more people share it, the less scarce it becomes and the less you have the opportunity to do commerce around it. So this is one conflict that's very strong. Another conflict is when you look at who are the role models. I mean, most people would say like, Bill Gates is a role model because he's a billionaire and he's solving polio and all of that. And then you have Linus Torvalds. He created Linux. But if you see who has created more wealth for the world, like if you really question that, then it's definitely Linux, because all of your cloud runs on Linux, or most of your mobile phones run on Linux. The reason why Apple came back was also again because of open source. Even if you're using iOS or Mac, you're probably using open source. So if you see who creates more wealth for society, is actually Torvalds. It's not Gates. And the conflict between creators and distributors. So you have creators of software who have like put in their heart into the software, and then they see the distributors make the money. In this case, AWS makes like AWS is everybody's favorite punching bag right now. But I'm sure there is like, I think Google has taken a better policy that they're going to share revenue with open source creators. I'm not sure what's the DO policy on this, but so there is a fight that the distributors make money. The more people use open source, the more money DigitalOcean and AWS and Google Cloud is going to make, right? And the creators are fighting back, even though it's justified because, hey, you gave away your software for free, what do you expect? But then on the other side, there is a fairness perspective. If somebody is making money from the software, I should get a piece of it, right? So when GitHub was acquired by Microsoft for $7.5 billion, they started, we thank Linus for creating Git. That's all he got. But he doesn't care, right? But then, the nerds are going to fight back. They are not going to like just sit and say that we let the distributors make all the money. And then again, coming back to the other conflict of cloud and open source. So open source is the foundation of cloud. The reason why cloud has exploded is because of all the killer apps that are available today. You have databases, you have Slack alternatives, you have SAP alternatives, you have like every alternative is available on open source. You can get started tomorrow without any friction. And that is actually giving rise to the cloud, and which is again increasing this conflict. So in which direction this conflict is going to go, it's evolving right now. We don't know who's going to win. But I don't know. Maybe we can have more discussion on that if there's time. And the final point I want to bring in here is this whole concept that as humanity, I know we are all here about talking about startups and business and VCs, but what is what should humanity strive to achieve? Is it money or is it freedom? So when you say what is money? Money is nothing but a stepping stone to freedom. in many ways, right? I mean, what do you do if you have money, right? You can do what you want. So you have more freedom to do things you want because you have money. But the underlying focus of everything is actually freedom. It's not money. What creates wealth for society is freedom. If you look at the amount of free software that the amount of wealth it's created. So we get emails from people like, we get an email from a hospital in Somalia saying that, hey, thanks for ERPNext, we're using it to run our 100-bed hospital in Somalia. And we got an email from somebody in Kurdistan. So Kurdistan national TV is using ERPNext. I mean, they don't even have a country, but they can use like best quality software today because that is freedom. So when you are thinking about open source, you have to think like, what are we here to maximize? It's a conflict from what we are trained to think is that money is the only measure of success, but it's actually freedom. And also be more grateful that, a lot of nerds are working day in and day out so that this freedom is available to so many people. And, people actually fight for the freedom. There are licenses which ensure the freedom of software for every user. And there are a lot of fights that go on internet forums, on mailing lists about free software. And it's really important to kind of acknowledge it, that we are here because there is a lot of free software. DigitalOcean is here because there is a lot of free software. So that's it. That's my talk. Happy to take questions.
Just wanted to understand the talent front. How easy is it to get talent? One, two. Do you have remote, and if so, how do you manage? Broadly on talent, retaining people, hiring people in a city like Bombay, which is not a tech hub per se. I could be wrong.
Okay. So I'll tell you, there are a couple of facts here. One is that the generation of college students that is coming out now is extremely good because of YouTube and internet. They are very well aware. They are productive on day one. No training, they'll start delivering. And this is so there is like a whole surplus of talent out there. You need to know how to find them. Mumbai, the advantage is there are very few startups. And there are a lot of people who want to live in Mumbai, don't want to move to Bangalore. So I think there is reasonable talent here in Mumbai if you're willing to patiently wait. We do some activities like we run a hackathon with DBIT. I think Professor Tayyab Ali is here. He's an active collaborator. We collaborate with Don Bosco Institute of Technology to run the Mumbai hackathon, and that's a great source of talent. So we didn't run this hackathon for recruitment, but we have recruited the winner every year. So it's also a great way to build branding about the work we do, and then we do open source, right? The biggest advantage is like if you are a creator, if you are a craftsperson, what you want is you want your name on your craft. So if you work for Microsoft and you build something or whoever, and then you can't tell anybody, okay, hey, this is what I built, because nobody knows. It's all owned by the company. So great talent wants their name there. So that's a big advantage. And and we also have open. We are also remote. We have an office. We have actually 3 small offices in Mumbai. One of which is permanent, like almost shut all the time because nobody shows up in office. So that's a culture we've been trying to. It's a very result-oriented culture, and we are a product company. That's another thing that we have over the last 10 years we have decided we will not do services, because when you say ERP, there is huge opportunity of services around ERP. So we have focused on staying lean and only building the product. So that work is also pretty rare in Mumbai. Yeah, I mean, if you stick around for a long time and there is talent available. At least that's what we see.
Okay, we have one other question here.
Hey Rishabh, my name is Faz. First of all, you're truly inspirational. What I've realized is people want to pursue open source more as part-time because they have to feed themselves first. Open source is more about freedom and giving back to the society. I also got to know historic, like how you started off. But now you are more full-time, right? You are living through the consulting of your open source. So what advice would you give to people who are looking for open source? Should they go full-time or should they be like part-time and then go full-time?
So we are a 40 people team now. It's been a long journey. We've been around for 10 years. We have been very clear about the path from day one. So open source was a non-negotiable on day one. It is a non-negotiable for us today. Advice I would give you is like you do open source if you are in a good position yourself as a company or as an individual, that you have revenue or you have some visibility in terms of your sustainability for some period of time. because you can't start doing open source to earn money. So you build a reputation. What happens? The benefit you get from open source is you build a very good reputation. Now, it takes a while to build a reputation because we open sourced ERPNext in 2008, and it's been so many years after we got traction. So, and there are 80 million repositories on GitHub. So it's not that you are going to get. You have to be committed to the path, is what I say. If there is a path, don't burn yourself out. Stay very, very lean. If you want to do something open source, build a very lean team. And I'm a very big fan of lean teams. I know Zerodha as a tech company very well. I think they're India's best tech company. The entire platform is built by 29 developers. Another example I always give is the game called Prince of Persia. I don't know if those who are from the 90s or you've played this Prince of Persia game. Right? It's a guy called Jordan Mechner. So Prince of Persia, the entire game was written in assembly by one 20-year-old kid, including the artwork. So you believe that if you want to stay lean, if you want to do open source, you have to stay lean and stay lean for a longer time. Play the long game, build a reputation, do it for the right reasons. Again, I understand that your distributors other people will make money from your software, and which is fine. You have to live with that. That other people are going to make money, and yeah. So broadly, it's a longer game, but you be in a good position. If you think you have some revenue visibility, then you should do it. I wouldn't recommend this somebody who needs to survive or needs like revenue upfront to survive. So a lot of companies do have good revenue, but they aspire for growth. So at that point, you also have a choice that okay, if you're making good revenue, if you do open source now, we may not grow as much because we're putting resources in this. That's a decision you make at that point. That's also a tough decision. I also talk to a lot of companies and they get stuck at this point more often that they want to open source parts of their infra or parts of their products, but they are just so lost in making money that they forget that they're already doing well.
Rushabh, this has been fantastic and very insightful. Thank you very much. Can we have a huge round of applause?